Hey everyone, it's Jason here at Horology Middle East, and today I want to talk to you about this beautiful Zenith Heritage Pilot ton-up timepiece that I just picked up for review. This watch was officially announced at Baselworld, and in fact we had done a news story about this piece shortly after it was announced, but it was actually under a different name. So when this watch was announced, Zenith had called it the Heritage Pilot Cafe Racer, but since then they've had to change the name to Zenith Heritage Pilot Ton-up. And the reason they've had to do that is apparently because the Cafe Racer name belongs to another brand or entity, so they were not allowed to use it on the retail pieces. So, it's not a big deal. They've gone and changed the name. The rest of the watches, as we saw it at Baselworld. And although the name Tanup, sounds a bit odd, there is a bit of a connection to what this watch represents, and we'll get to that in a minute. So Zenith released this watch and is kind of paying tribute to the cafe racer movement that was popular in the 1960s in England. And the movement was basically you'd have youths who'd get together in 24-hour transport cafes, and they'd hang out, chat with their friends, and do the usual stuff. And then they'd basically jump on their bikes and charge off to the next cafe. So I guess they would compete with each other. And the interesting thing is that these bikers didn't use stock bikes back then. So what they'd do is they'd buy a bike, whatever it is, for whatever budget that they have, and then to increase the performance and compete and basically get there ahead of their friends, or compete in other challenges that were issued, they would strip down the bikes, get rid of all the superfluous components, and maybe do a little bit of work on the engine, tune it a little bit, and then they'd also extend the fuel tanks so that they could basically get to where they wanted to go without refueling. And the idea behind tuning the engine and the weight loss, taking out those components I'd mentioned, was so that they could get their bikes to give as much performance as possible. So the goal was to do about 100 miles per hour, which is 160 kilometers per hour. And in British colloquial at that time, with the cafe racer, the youths who were in that movement, a ton actually meant 100 miles per hour. So they'd probably say something like, I want to tune my bike up so it can break a ton or hit a ton or whatever, and that basically meant that they wanted their bikes to do 100 miles per hour, which most of them wouldn't out of the factory. So that's the kind of connection that I mentioned earlier. With the name now Pilot Ton Up, it's connected to that whole movement in that way. But yeah, besides that, it's a fantastic looking watch, as you can see. It's it's got the typical Zenith Pilot case, and you probably saw this very same case last year, if you remember, when Zenith released the Heritage Pilot Extra Special Bronze. That's basically the same case, so you get the same 45 case size, and it's about 14.25 thick in this particular model. So it's a fairly chunky pilot watch. And the interesting thing with this watch is, whereas the bronze watch, you'd have to wait for a little while before it starts aging and changing color, which, a lot of people, including myself, are quite excited to see how that turns out. This watch, this is a stainless steel case, but it's already got a bit of patina on it. It's already looking a little bit aged. You can see here on this lug, there's a bit of aging or patina, if you want to, and you can see that all around the case, which should just be coming through on this video. So the reason that this watch has got that, even though it's a relatively new piece, is because Zenith applies a nice treatment to give it this look. So what they do is they take the stainless steel case and they submerge it in a black chrome bath. And when they do this, when they extract the case, the case comes out completely black. What they do then is sandblast it and then put it back into the chrome bath once again, so it goes in 2 times. Then when the case is removed for the second time, they give it a hand brush. They give it a bit of hand brush work, and that's how you end up with the look that you see here. I know a lot of people aren't into the fake patina style. Like they prefer the watch to age on their own, or they think that that's the whole point of buying a watch, in that you can see it age. I think it's fair enough that you can get a watch that is pre-aged if you wish, And I have to say, even though this is kind of a treatment, it's come out really well. I mean, the case looks fantastic, and it really gives off a nice vintage vibe. It just looks great. So they've done a fantastic job with that. It's I have no complaints about that, and I'm perfectly fine with them selling a watch that looks that is pre-aged. I should say the case is pre-aged. And there are a lot of nice details as well. I mean, the case itself is quite handsome, but there are a lot of nice details. As you can see, it's the onion crown, the massive onion crown that you've seen on some of Zenith's other watches. And this is a screw-down crown, but because of the design of the crown and the size, you can actually operate this with gloves. So if you are in fact a pilot, or you wear gloves from time to time, you can actually operate the crown without too much trouble. Same with the pushers as well. It's a nice change to see rectangular pushers rather than the typical round pushers, and it's a nice detail that they've got on the pushers on both the start, stop, and reset pusher. And I guess this design or pattern would resemble the foot pedals on some bikes, or they kind of meant to evoke the look of maybe even a race car pedal, which is got this little design so you have more grip on the pedal with your shoes. But yeah, it's a nice detail. And then beyond the case, the other thing that really grabs the attention is this fantastic dial. So like the case, the dial gets a bit of aging treatment, and in this case what that means is the entire dial, it's made of it's a slate gray color, but if you look really closely, I'm pretty sure it's not going to come out in the video here, but if you look closely, you don't even need a loop. You will be able to spot this very nice grain texture on the dial. Wherever you see the gray here, you'll see this nice fantastic texture on it. It's including the two subdials here. So the layout of the dial is very simple, as you can see, very legible, and I'll just take you through some of the elements. So on the circumference of the dial, just inside of the chapter ring, you've got the massive Arabic numerals, very familiar font that Zenith always uses. And although they might look applied, they do raise slightly above where the case is, the dial rather. And the reason they do that is because all of these numbers are actually, all the numerals are actually superluminova. So these are not applied shapes. The numbers are not applied shapes. The figures themselves are basically superluminova, and there's so much of it that it actually sits a little bit above the dial, so it gives this kind of applied numbered finish. But yeah, it's actually superluminova, and it's really bright. When the loom gets charged up, it's super bright. So even when the watch has been looming for it will loom for quite some time. You've got loom on the central chronograph hand as well as the hour and minute hands. You've got a nice vintage looking extended Mercedes hour hand, as well as a sort of leaf shaped minute hand, and I think it just kind of complements the rest of the dial and the rest of the watch perfectly. Thankfully, Zenith hasn't put a date window on this piece, so nothing is spoiled. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate not having a date window on watches these days. So yeah, it's really beautiful dial overall. I think it really works on every level, and if you combine all the elements, the dial and all its little details with the case, and this brings us even to the strap. So it's a oily nubuck strap, I should say, and the color is olive green. So it pairs really well with the kind of slate gray color of the dial, as well as the beige superluminova numerals. Let me just flip the back of the watch as well. So you've got this beautiful case back. It's it's not you don't have a sapphire see-through exhibition case back, but it's a beautiful case back, as you would normally find on most of Zenith's pilot watches. And since this is a prototype, you still have the kind of cafe racer spirit down here. I think that will probably change, and just say pilot ton-up or heritage pilot ton-up in the final retail pieces. But as I said, this is a prototype. The interesting thing to note here is that this is a titanium case pack. So the watch has got a three-piece case. You've got the bezel, the main case, and the case back. So those two components are, the case, the main case and the bezel are made from stainless steel, which has got that age treatment. But this titanium case back has also got a bit of an age treatment. So if you look at it here, you can see it's blackened a little bit. It's aged very, very slightly, and that's pretty cool. They've done the same kind of treatment even on this titanium case back. One thing that I did notice though is that, so even the titanium pin buckle that you can see here, this is also made from titanium, but sadly it doesn't seem like they've applied the same age treatment on this particular component of the watch. And that kind of gives away that this is all artificial treatment. It's not that the watch has aged this. I mean, not that I think there's anything wrong with that. I guess it's just if you want to give people the impression that the watch is pre-aged, then you should have probably gone the whole 9 yards and done for the pin buckle as well. That's a small detail, but not a deal breaker by any means, if you ask me. And I can't really show you the movement, but I'll tell you a little bit about it. So what you have inside this timepiece is the El Primero 4069 automatic chronograph caliber. It's not a new movement. We've seen it on plenty of other Zenith watches over the years, and although it's not new, it's still fairly capable. You get 50 hours of power reserve. It's automatic, as I said, and it's obviously being an El Primero, it's 36,000 VPH, basically a high beat movement. It's 5 hertz, and so it's an integrated chronograph, and integrated chronograph caliber, and it's got a column wheel, so it's pretty reasonable. And let me just operate the chronograph so you get a feel for it. So if I'll bring the dial in really close so you can see the hand taking off. So it's a nice smooth takeoff from the 60 position. One thing I will say though is the start stop button. When you want to engage the chronograph, you want to start it, you have to put in a bit of effort to basically push this pusher in. It's got a very stiff feeling. I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just because this is a prototype, because starting the chronograph requires a bit of effort, but if you want to stop it, it's fairly, you can do that pretty easily, and then even the reset, very effortless. But if you're starting it, you've got to put a bit of effort into it. So yeah, but it feels great. I mean, I have to say, like, even though you've got to put an effort into it, it's got this nice clicky solid feeling, and you feel like it's a really robust caliber sitting under this beautiful dial. So let me just put the watch on right now so you guys can see how big it is on the wrist. So just give me a second. So the strap is a bit stiff, like putting, you can feel that it's quite stiff right now, and I guess even though this is a sample, I'm pretty sure it's not been worn extensively, so it'll probably soften up over time. It's got a rubber inner lining. It's stiff, but it wears really comfortable on the wrist. I've been wearing it for a few days now, and no complaints in terms of overall comfort. And the olive green color just looks brilliant. The watch as a whole might give you a few challenges if you like to pair your outfits up with your watch. Like if you want to put together a nice ensemble or something like that, you'll have to be a little bit careful in terms of what you do. But I think it's just gorgeous. I mean, just look at that watch. It's got so much of presence with the size, and then you've got all the elements, the green strap, this aged case, and this fantastic vintage looking dial, and it just I think it's a beautiful piece. Probably one of the coolest watches that I've seen this year. Because it's a bit thick, you will have to coax it to get it under your shirt. You're not going to just be able to slide a long sleeve shirt over it, but it can be done. I've done it, and it is possible. You just need to put in a little bit of effort, but you can get this under a shirt sleeve. And if you're the type that just wears a polo shirt and maybe even a jacket, then you have no problems at all. But it's really, really nice looking piece. You can see that the sapphire crystal, which has got anti-reflective coating on both sides, sits a little bit above the case. It's not a huge amount above, and it's already a tall watch, so that extra millimeter or two doesn't really make a huge difference to it. Because of the big crown, you'll have to wear the watch a little bit further away from your actual wrist, because if you do that, you'll tend to make contact with the crown. But again, you can adjust for that. Just put the watch a little bit away, or you can even do a wrong wrist, and put it on your right wrist. But beyond that, the watch sits quite well. I think, despite the massive 45 size, I can just about pull it off. And the watch, despite its chunkiness, it's not that heavy. It doesn't feel heavy on the wrist, and in fact, you feel the weight slightly at the bottom. It's not a top heavy watch. I guess with this big footprint, the weight is spread quite evenly, and the weight, if you feel anything, is towards the bottom of the case, not at the top, so you don't feel like it's top heavy. And when you move your wrist like this, you don't feel like the watch is trying to rip itself off. So overall, a really, really nice piece. And I'll have a lot more detailed pictures to show off some of these incredible vintage touches on Horology Middle East in the next couple of days. So definitely look forward to that. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, do drop me a note in the comments below or on my social media channels, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, as always, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, so you get an update whenever I do these videos. And yeah, that's about it. So if you found this video useful, please like and share it. And yeah, let me know if you've got any comments or questions. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.